My name is Oliver. I was 11 years old when I learned that some lessons cost more than money. They cost trust, they cost innocence, and sometimes they cost the very relationship you thought would last forever. It started on a Tuesday morning in July, the kind of morning where the sun hits your window just right and you wake up thinking, maybe today will be different. Maybe today Mom will actually make breakfast instead of rushing out the door. Maybe Dad will remember he promised to teach me how to fix my bike. But that Tuesday was not about promises kept. It was about the moment everything I knew about my family shattered into 1,000 pieces I would spend the next month trying to pick up. I woke up to the sound of suitcases rolling across the hardwood floor. Not one suitcase, 3 large ones, the kind you pack when you are going somewhere far away for a long time. My parents were in the hallway, dressed like they were heading to some fancy event, laughing about something I could not hear from my doorway. When I stepped out, still in my pajamas and rubbing sleep from my eyes, my mom turned to me with this massive smile. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is going to take you on a journey you won't forget. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And let me know if you've ever been the invisible child in your own family. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why that question matters. The kind of smile people wear when they are about to tell you something they think is exciting but, will be terrible. Oliver, sweetheart. We have the most incredible news, she said, practically bouncing on her heels. Her eyes were bright with an excitement I had not seen in months. Your father and I are finally doing it. We are taking that trip to Southeast Asia we have been dreaming about for years. Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. A whole month exploring ancient temples, pristine beaches, floating markets. Can you believe it? After all these years of talking about it, we are actually going. I stood there, blinking, trying to process what she just said. A whole month, 30 days, 4 weeks. My brain was still catching up, still trying to understand why she looked so happy about leaving when my dad clapped me on the shoulder with that firm grip he used when he wanted me to feel like we were having a man-to-man moment. You are going to be fine, champ. You are 11 now. That is practically a teenager. You can handle the house for a bit. We have been talking about this, and we think this is actually good for you. Builds character, independence, real-world skills. When we were your age, kids were way more self-sufficient. You have got everything you need here. You are smart. You will figure it out. Independence. That word hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to ask the obvious question. The one that was screaming in my head so loud I could barely hear anything else. Who is going to stay with me? Who is going to make sure I eat? Who is going to be here if something goes wrong? But before I could get the words out, before I could form a complete sentence, my mom pressed something into my hand. I looked down. 2 crumpled dollar bills, wrinkled, soft from being in someone's pocket too long. I stared at them, feeling their worn texture between my fingers. Just in case, she said, still smiling like this made perfect sense. There is food in the pantry. You know how to make sandwiches, right? Of course you do. And look, we left the emergency credit card on the counter if you really need something. You are such a smart kid, Oliver. We trust you completely. This is going to be such a growing experience for you. Trust. Another word that felt heavy, but not in a good way. It felt like a weight they were handing me and walking away before I could say it was too much to carry. Like they were calling it trust, when really it was just abandonment with a better name. Wait, I said, my voice coming out smaller than I wanted, younger, more like a scared little kid than the independent, almost teenager. They kept insisting I was. You are leaving right now? Like today? This morning? The flight is in 3 hours, Dad said, checking his watch with that impatient gesture he always made when he thought something was taking too long. We have to get moving or we will miss it. Traffic to the airport is always unpredictable. But hey, we will send you pictures. Lots of pictures. It will be like you are there with us. You will see all the amazing places we visit. Except, I would not be there with them. I would be here, alone, in this house, for an entire month. The longest I had ever been alone. Before was maybe 4 hours when they both had to work late. And even then, they called to check on me. But now they were talking about a month like it was nothing. Like I was a houseplant they could water before leaving and expect to still be alive when they got back. My mom gave me a quick hug, the kind where she barely wrapped her arms around me before pulling away, like she was already halfway out the door in her mind. My dad ruffled my hair in that way he Thought was affectionate, but always made me feel like a dog being patted on the head. Then they were grabbing their suitcases, checking their pockets for passports, arguing about whether they had printed the boarding passes, and moving toward the door, like a small tornado of expensive luggage and excited energy. "We love you," my mom called over her shoulder. "Be good, be responsible. We will check in when we can. Time difference might make it tricky, but we will stay in touch." I stood in the doorway, watching the car back out of the driveway. Watching them wave like this was all perfectly normal, like every family did this. Watching until they turned the corner and disappeared behind the neighbor's house. The sound of the engine faded. The morning birds went back to chirping. A dog barked somewhere down the street, and I was standing there, alone with $2 in my hand and a sick feeling growing in my stomach. The silence that filled the house after they left was not peaceful. It was thick, heavy. It pressed against my ears like I was underwater. I looked down at the $2 in my hand and felt something twist in my chest. $2 for a month, even at 11, even without really understanding money that well. I knew that was not right. I knew that was not how parents were supposed to act. $2 would not even buy me a meal at McDonald's. It would not buy me a pizza. It would barely buy me a bag of chips. I walked slowly to the kitchen counter where the credit card sat. It looked official, shiny, embossed with numbers and my dad's name in raised letters. It looked like it could solve all my problems. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, and felt a cold realization wash over me like someone had dumped ice water down my back. I had no idea how to use this. I had never used a credit card before. Did it need a code, a PIN? Did I just swipe it? What if the machine asked me questions I did not know how to answer? What if it did not work? But they were gone. Already at the airport, probably. Already through security. Already sitting at their gate, sipping coffee, excited about their adventure. There was no one to call, no one to ask. I was truly, completely on my own. The first hint that this month was going to be a disaster came about an hour later, when my stomach growled. I had been too shocked to eat breakfast, too busy trying to process what was happening, and now the hunger was real and demanding. I opened the pantry door, expecting to see the kind of food you would leave for a kid who needed to survive, alone for a month. Instead, I found half a box of stale crackers that tasted like cardboard, a jar of peanut butter that was scraped almost clean with just a thin layer coating the sides, 3 cans of beans I had no idea how to cook because I had never used a can opener successfully without cutting myself, a bag of white rice that might as well have been decorative rocks because I did not know the first thing about making rice from scratch, and a box of pasta with no sauce. The fridge was worse, so much worse. I opened it and cold air rushed out, but inside was almost nothing. A carton of milk that had an expiration date from 2 days ago. Some leftover Chinese food in a plastic container that smelled questionable even through the lid. 3 eggs sitting in the door. A stick of butter. Half a jar of pickles I hated. A bottle of ketchup. That was it. That was what they left me to survive on for 30 days. I stood there, refrigerator door open, cold air washing over me, feeling my throat tighten. They really did this. They really left me with $2 and a fridge full of almost nothing and told me I would be fine, that this was good for me, that this was about independence and building character. But independence was not supposed to feel like abandonment. Character building was not supposed to mean figuring out how not to starve. I closed the fridge and stared at the credit card still sitting on the counter. Okay, I thought. Okay, I can do this. I can just order food. People do it all the time. I pulled out my phone and opened one of those food delivery apps I had seen my parents use before. The bright colors and pictures of burgers and pizzas filled the screen. My stomach growled again, louder this time, like it was trying to reach through my body and grab the food itself. I spent 20 minutes building the perfect order, not too expensive, but enough food to last me a few days. A large pizza, some chicken wings, a 2-liter soda. It came to $23 with delivery and tip. I carefully entered the credit card information, double-checking every number. Hit submit, waited. The little spinning circle on the screen turned and turned. Then a message popped up in angry red letters. Payment declined. I tried again. Declined. Changed. The order to just a pizza. Declined. Tried. A different app. Declined. My hands started shaking. I called the number on the back of the card, navigating through the automated menu until I finally got to a real person. How can I help you today? The customer service representative asked in that overly cheerful voice they train people to use. My card is not working, I said. It keeps getting declined. Let me pull up your account. Can I have the card number? I read it off. And what is your relationship to the account holder? It is my dad's card, but he left it for me to use. I see. Well, sir, this card shows as unactivated. It needs to be activated by the primary account holder before it can be used. Is your father available? My heart sank. No, he is traveling, out of the country. Then I am afraid there is nothing I can do until he calls in to activate it. For security purposes, only the account holder can complete that process. I hung up, stared at the useless piece of plastic on the counter. Picked up the $2 again. Did the math. A slice of pizza from the corner store was $2.50. A sandwich from the deli was $4. A bag of chips was $1.75. Even a pack of ramen from the grocery store was 99 cents. And I would need at least 30 packs to make it through the month. $2 would buy me almost nothing. And it had to last 30 days. Felt panic rising in my chest like water filling up a tank. What was I going to do? How was I going to eat? Were my parents really this stupid? Or did they just not care? Both options felt equally terrible. That first day, I made myself a peanut butter sandwich using the last scraps from the jar. I had to use a knife to scrape the sides, getting every possible bit. The bread was on the edge of going stale, hard around the crusts, but I ate it anyway, sitting at the kitchen table in the growing dark. I did not turn on the lights. I did not turn on the TV. I just sat there chewing slowly, trying to make the sandwich last as long as possible because I did not know when I would eat a real meal again. Before bed, I did something that felt both dramatic and necessary. Something that in the moment seemed like I was overreacting, but looking back I know saved me. I found an old composition notebook in my room, the kind with the black and white speckled cover, and I wrote on the first page in thick black marker, all capital letters, record. Under it, I wrote the date in red pen, and then I started my first entry. Day 1. They left this morning. Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. Mom said a whole month. Dad said I'm old enough to handle it. They left me with $2. The credit card they left does not work. Called the bank. It needs to be activated. Only Dad can do it. He is on a plane. The fridge is almost empty. Expired milk. Bad Chinese food. 3 eggs. The pantry has some crackers, almost no peanut butter. Cans I do not know how to open. Rice I do not know how to cook. Mom said this builds character. Dad said it makes me independent. I think character is just another word for suffering they do not want to feel guilty about. I think independence is what parents call it when they leave you behind. I closed the notebook and shoved it under my mattress. Part of me felt stupid for writing it down, like I was being dramatic, like I was some kid in a movie who thought documenting everything would somehow make it better. But another part of me, the part that remembered every time my parents chose their own plans over me, every time they forgot a school event or a promise or a birthday dinner, every time they told me I was old enough to understand when really they meant old enough to not complain, that part knew this notebook might be important someday. That part knew I needed proof. Because if something went wrong, if I got sick, if I got hurt, if I simply disappeared, there needed to be evidence that I had not just failed at being independent. Evidence that they had failed at being parents. That first night I barely slept. Every sound in the house seemed louder. The refrigerator humming, the air conditioner clicking on and off, the house settling with creaks and groans. I had never noticed before when other people were here. I kept my phone next to my pillow, checking it every hour to see if my parents had texted. They had not. At around 2 in the morning, I saw my mom had posted a photo on social media. Her and Dad at the airport, big smiles, caption reading, "Finally doing it. Dream vacation starts now." 43 likes already. 3 comments saying, "So jealous," and "You deserve it and have the best time." No one asked where I was. No one wondered who was watching their kid. Because why would they? We looked like a normal family. Normal families did not leave their 11-year-old son alone. With $2 and an empty fridge by day 2, the reality started to sink in. This was not a bad dream. This was not a test. They were really gone. They really expected me to survive like this. I woke up with my stomach already hurting from hunger. I had not eaten since that sad peanut butter sandwich yesterday afternoon. I went to the kitchen and took inventory again, hoping maybe I had missed something. I had not. Same empty fridge, same sad pantry. I decided to ration what was left, made a plan. Half a slice of bread for breakfast. Nothing for lunch. Half a can of beans for dinner if I could figure out the can opener. I could make it work. I had to make it work. What choice did I have? I spent that morning trying to figure out the can opener. It was one of those manual ones, the kind with the two handles that you squeeze together while turning a little wheel. I had seen my mom use it 100 times. But when I tried, the wheel would not catch. It just spun uselessly. I tried for 20 minutes, getting more frustrated, until finally the sharp edge slipped and cut my thumb, not deep but enough to bleed. I stuck my thumb in my mouth and tasted metal and salt. Threw the can opener across the kitchen, sat on the floor and tried not to cry. I was 11 years old. I should not have to figure this out. I should not be bleeding from trying to open a can of beans because I was so hungry my hands were shaking. This was not character building. This was neglect. But I did not know that word yet. I would not learn it for another week. That afternoon I gave up and ate the crackers. Just sat on the couch with the box, eating them one by one, slowly, trying to make them last. They were so stale they barely had flavor. But they filled the empty space in my stomach for a little while. When the box was gone, I added to my notebook. Day 2. Ate the rest of the crackers. Cut my thumb trying to open beans. Still have not figured out the can opener. Phone fully charged, but no messages from them. Checked Mom's social media. She posted a picture of a sunset. Caption says, "Living my best life. Nobody is checking on me. Nobody knows I am here. If something happened, how long would it take for anyone to notice?" By day 3, the hunger was not just in my stomach anymore. It was in my head. A fog that made it hard to think clearly, hard to focus. I felt dizzy when I stood up too fast. My hands trembled slightly when I held them out in front of me. I tried to watch TV, but the commercials were all for food and they made everything worse. Juicy burgers, hot pizza, families sitting around tables laughing while they ate. I had to turn it off. I managed to open one of the cans of beans using a different technique I found in a YouTube video. Pried it open slowly with a butter knife, careful not to cut myself again. The beans inside were dark red and swimming in some kind of thick sauce. I did not have a way to heat them up because I was terrified of using the stove. So I ate them cold, straight from the can, sitting on the kitchen floor. They tasted like metal and salt and sadness. I gagged on the first bite but forced myself to swallow. Forced myself to eat half the can because I did not know when I would eat again. Saved the other half in the fridge. Covered it with plastic wrap. Looked at my remaining food supply. 1.5 cans of beans left. Some eggs I did not know how to cook. A bag of rice that was useless to me. That was it. That was all the food in my entire house. I had been alone for 3 days and I was already running out. That evening, I made my first video. Set up my phone on the kitchen counter. Angled it so it caught the mostly empty fridge behind me when I opened it. Hit record. Took a breath. My name is Oliver. I am 11 years old. It has been 3 days since my parents left for Southeast Asia. They told me I would be fine. They told me this was about building character and independence. They left me with $2 and a credit card that does not work. I've been eating stale crackers and cold beans from a can. I am hungry all the time. I am dizzy. I am scared. If someone is watching this, it probably means something bad happened. It probably means I waited too long to ask for help. It probably means someone finally asked where I was. If my parents are watching this, I want you to know, I am not fine. I was never fine. You just did not care enough to make sure. I stopped the recording. Watched it back. My face looked pale on the screen. My eyes looked too big for my head. I looked like one of those sad kids in commercials for charity organizations. I saved the video in a hidden folder on my phone labeled School Project. So if my parents did happen to check, they would not find it. Then I went back to the notebook and wrote more. Day 3. Made a video. Not sure who will see it. Not sure it matters. But if something happens, at least there will be proof. Proof that I was here. Proof that I was forgotten. Proof that when I needed them most, they chose beaches and temples over making sure I would not starve. The days started to blur together after that. Day 4, Day 5, Day 6. I stopped counting calories because I did not have enough to count. I stopped hoping my parents would call because every time my phone buzzed and it was not them. The disappointment felt like another punch to the gut. I stopped feeling hungry around Day 6. My stomach just went numb. That scared me more than the hunger ever did. It felt like my body was giving up. I rationed the beans. 1/4 can per day. The eggs stayed in the fridge because I was too afraid to try cooking them and waste them if I messed up. The rice sat in the pantry, mocking me. I spent hours on the internet, watching videos about how to cook rice without a rice cooker, but every method seemed too complicated, required too many things I did not have. I did not trust myself not to burn the house down. On day 7, I made another video. This one was different. I was not sad anymore. I was angry. "This is day 7, I said to the camera, and my voice was hard in a way I did not recognize. 1 week since my parents left me alone. 1 week of figuring out how to survive on scraps. 1 week of nobody caring. People talk about bad parents like they are monsters, like they hit their kids or scream at them or do something obvious that everyone can point to and say, that is wrong, that is abuse. But my parents are not monsters. They are just selfish. They wanted a vacation more than they wanted to make sure I was okay. They wanted to explore ancient temples more than they wanted to check if their son was eating. They wanted to live their dream more than they wanted to be responsible for the kid they chose to have. And the worst part is, they will come back and act like nothing happened. They will ask me how I was. They will expect me to say fine. They will expect me to be grateful they trusted me with independence. They will post pictures of their trip and tell everyone what an amazing time they had and how it was so good for them to get away. And nobody will know that while they were getting massages on beaches, I was eating cold beans on my kitchen floor. Nobody will know unless I make sure they know. So I'm documenting everything, every empty meal, every dizzy spell, every moment of being alone. Because when they come back, they are going to see exactly what their choices cost, and it is going to cost them everything. I saved the video, added it to the folder, closed my phone. The anger felt good. It felt like fuel, like something I could use to keep going, because the alternative was giving up. And I was not ready to do that yet. On day 8, I spent the last of my money. Well, one of my dollars. I had been avoiding it, trying to make the food I had last as long as possible. But by day 8, I was so hungry I could not think about anything else. I walked to the corner store, the one 3 blocks from my house, and spent 15 minutes standing in front of the instant ramen section trying to decide which one would give me the most food. I settled on a pack of 6 for $5. Too expensive. Way more than I had. The cashier, an older man who was always nice to me, looked at the ramen and then at me. "Just this today, Oliver?" he asked. "Yes, sir." He rang it up. $5.32 with tax. My heart sank. I only had $1. "I'm sorry." I thought it was less. "Can I just get 1 pack?" He looked at me for a long moment. Really looked at me. I wondered what he saw. A skinny kid with dark circles under his eyes. A kid who was buying ramen by himself on a Wednesday afternoon. A kid who looked hungry. "How about this?" he said. "You give me that $1 and we call it even for the whole pack of 6. But you have to promise me something. You eat at least 2 of these today?" "Right away. Do not save them all. You need to eat, okay?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Handed over the $1. Took the ramen. Walked home as fast as I could without running. Back in my kitchen, I boiled water in a pot, my hands shaking as I opened the first pack. Dumped the noodles in. Watched them soften and curl. Added the flavor packet. The smell made my mouth water so much it almost hurt. Ate the first pack standing at the stove, burning my tongue because I could not wait for it to cool down. It was the best thing I had tasted in a week. Salty and warm and filling. I ate a second pack right after, slower this time, savoring every bite. For the first time in days, my stomach stopped hurting. For the first time in days, I felt almost human again. That night, I added to my notebook. Day 8, bought ramen with my last $1. The man at the corner store gave me a deal. 6 packs for $1 when it should have cost more than 5. He told me to eat 2 today. He looked at me like he knew something was wrong. I wonder if he will tell anyone. I wonder if anyone would care if he did. Ate 2 packs. Feel better. But I only have 4 packs left now and still 3 weeks to go. The math does not work. It never works. By day 9, something changed in me. I woke up and did not feel scared anymore. I felt determined. If I was going to survive this, I needed to be smarter. I needed a plan. I started going through the house looking for anything I could use. Couch cushions I could check for loose change. Jars I could return for deposits. Clothes I could maybe sell online. I found $3.72 in change. Quarters in the couch, dimes in the junk drawer. Pennies scattered in my dad's desk. I found 4 empty bottles in the garage that I could return for 10 cents each. I found an old video game I never played anymore that I listed online for $15. Suddenly I had almost $5. It was not much, but it was something. It was hope, but then on day 9, exactly as I was starting to feel like maybe I could make it, something else happened. Something that made me realize I was not as invisible as I thought. The doorbell rang around 3 in the afternoon. I froze. I was in the living room, sorting through the change I had found, counting it again to make sure I had not made a mistake. Nobody ever rang our doorbell. The mailman just left packages. Delivery people knocked or just left food on the porch. The doorbell meant someone wanted to talk. Someone wanted me to answer. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Standing on the porch was Mrs. Chen from next door. She was holding a casserole dish covered in aluminum foil. I hesitated. If I opened the door, she would see me. She would see that something was wrong. But if I did not open it, she might get suspicious. Might start asking questions. Might realize I was alone. I made a choice. Opened the door just wide enough to be polite. "Hi, Mrs. Chen," I said, trying to sound normal. "Oliver," she said, and her smile started bright but faded when she really looked at me. Her eyes scanned my face, and I saw the exact moment she registered that something was off. "Are you feeling okay?" "You look a little pale." "I am fine," I said automatically. The lie came out so easily it scared me. "Just tired. Been staying up late playing video games." She did not look convinced, but she handed me the casserole dish anyway. "I made too much chicken and rice. Thought you and your parents might want some. It is still warm." The weight of the dish in my hands, the warmth seeping through the glass, the smell of real food, it almost broke me. I had to focus on not crying. "Thank you so much," I managed. "That is really nice of you." "Are your parents home?" she asked, craning her neck slightly to see past me into the house. This was the moment. I could tell her the truth. Could admit they were gone. Could ask for help. But I thought about what would happen if I did. She would call someone. There would be questions, investigations. My parents would get in trouble. And then what? Would they send me to foster care? Would they take me away and put me with strangers? Would it be worse than this? "They are out," I said. Not technically a lie. "Running errands," she nodded slowly. "Well, make sure you eat that while it is still warm. And Oliver, if you ever need anything, I am right next door, okay?" "Anything at all." "Okay, thank you." I closed the door and stood there, holding the casserole, feeling tears start to roll down my cheeks. She saw me. She really saw me. Not the way my parents looked at me and saw an inconvenience or a responsibility. She looked at me and saw a kid who needed help. Even if she did not know the full story, she knew enough to bring food. Carried the casserole to the kitchen and lifted the foil. Steam rose up, carrying the smell of herbs and chicken and perfectly cooked rice. I got a fork and ate standing at the counter. Did not even bother with a plate. Just ate straight from the dish, shoving forkfuls into my mouth, tasting real food for the first time in over a week. Chicken that was tender and seasoned, rice that was fluffy and buttery, vegetables that were not from a can. I ate until I could not eat anymore, until my stomach hurt from being too full instead of too empty. Then I covered the dish and put it in the fridge, knowing it was probably 3 or 4 more meals if I was careful. That night, I updated my notebook with shaking hands. Day 9. Mrs. Chen brought food. She saw me, really saw me. She asked if my parents were home. I lied, said they were out. She told me if I need anything, I should come to her. Part of me wanted to tell her everything. Wanted to say, "I need help, I am alone, I am scared, please help me." But I did not, because I do not know what happens if I tell. I do not know if it makes things better or worse. So I took the food, and I lied, and now I have to live with that choice. The casserole is the best thing I have eaten in 9 days. It is the first time someone has made me feel like I matter. And that makes me angry, because it should not be the neighbor bringing me food. It should be the people who are supposed to love me. Over the next few days, I lived off that casserole and the remaining ramen. Stretched it as far as I could. A small portion for breakfast, a small portion for dinner. Nothing for lunch because I learned that if I did not eat during the day, my body just got used to the emptiness and stopped complaining. By day 12, the casserole was gone. By day 13, I was down to 2 packs of ramen, and my parents still had not called. Not once, just occasional social media posts showing their amazing adventures, temples, markets, beaches, always smiling, always having the time of their lives. On day 14, exactly 2 weeks after they left, I got my first direct message from my mom, a text that came through at 7 in the morning while I was lying in bed trying to find the energy to get up, having an amazing time. The food here is incredible. So many temples and such beautiful scenery. Wish you could see it. Hope you are being responsible and keeping the house clean. Miss you. Love, Mom. I stared at that text for a long time. Read it over and over. Wish you were here, but not enough to bring me. Not enough to make sure I was okay before they left. Hope you are being responsible. Like that was the most important thing. Not whether I was safe or fed or scared. Just whether I was being responsible. Whether I was cleaning up after myself like a good little adult. I did not respond. Instead, I took a screenshot, added it to a folder on my phone. I had started keeping evidence. That is what I was collecting. Evidence of every day they left me alone. Evidence of every meal I skipped. Evidence of every lie I had to tell to keep anyone from finding out. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, a plan was forming. A realization that I was not going to let this be forgotten. That when they came back, they were going to face what they had done. Started documenting everything more carefully. Took pictures of the empty fridge every few days to show how little I had. Took pictures of my face in the mirror, watching as I got thinner. As the dark circles under my eyes got darker, took videos of myself talking about what each day was like. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just honest, raw, the truth of what it felt like to be 11 and abandoned. On day 16, I made another video. This one was calm, factual. The anger had burned itself out into something colder, something sharper. Day 16, over 2 weeks alone. I have eaten 5 cans of beans, 1 box of crackers, 6 packs of ramen, 1 casserole from the neighbor that I had to lie to get. Current food supply, 0. Current money, $3.72 in change. 4 bottles to return for 40 cents total. Total available, $4.12. Days remaining, 14. I cannot make it 2 more weeks on $4. The math does not work. At some point, I'm going to have to make a choice. Keep hiding this and hope I make it until they come back. Or tell someone and face whatever consequences come from that. I am starting to realize the consequences might be worth it. Because right now, the only people who suffer are me. And that is not fair. That has never been fair. When they come back, I want them to understand what they did. I want them to see the videos, the pictures, the records. I want them to know that I survived in spite of them, not because of them. And I want them to face what happens. When you choose yourself over your child, I saved the video, watched it back. The person on the screen did not look like me anymore. He looked older, harder, like he had learned things no 11-year-old should have to learn. The next day, day 17, I made a decision that would change everything. I could not do this alone anymore. I was going to run out of food completely in the next few days. I had maybe enough money for 1 more small meal and then nothing. I could try to hold out for almost 2 more weeks, but I knew my body would not make it. I was already weak, already dizzy most of the day, already struggling to think clearly. If I waited much longer, something bad was going to happen, something I could not come back from. I thought about my options. I could tell Mrs. Chen, but then she might just give me more food without asking hard questions, and this would continue. I could call my aunt in another state, but she and my mom did not get along, and I had not talked to her in over a year. I could call the police, but what would I even say? My parents went on vacation? That sounded stupid, like I was overreacting, like I was just a spoiled kid who could not handle a little independence. Then I remembered Mr. Harrison, the school counselor. We had met a few times last year when I was having trouble with some kids who were bullying me. He had been kind, patient. He actually listened instead of just pretending to listen while thinking about something else. And more importantly, he was a mandatory reporter. I had learned about that in health class. Teachers and counselors had to report if they suspected a child was being hurt or neglected. If I told him, he would have to do something. It would not be my choice anymore. It would be out of my hands. I looked up the school number. It was summer, but I knew the office was still open for summer programs. My hands shook as I dialed. It rang 3 times before someone answered. Lincoln Middle School. How can I help you? Is Mr. Harrison there? The counselor. He is, but he is with someone right now. Can I take a message? Can you tell him Oliver Palmer needs to talk to him? It is kind of urgent. There was a pause. Is this an emergency, Oliver? Are you safe right now? The question almost broke me. Was I safe? Technically, yes. Technically, no. I was not being hit. I was not being yelled at, but I was starving and alone and terrified, and I did not know how much longer I could keep going. I'm safe right now, I said carefully. But I need to talk to Mr. Harrison as soon as possible. Hold. On. Music played for what felt like forever. Then his voice came through warm and concerned. Oliver? What is going on? Are you okay? And just like that, with those simple questions, everything came pouring out. I told him everything. About my parents leaving, about the $2, about the credit card that did not work, about the empty fridge and the expired milk and the beans I ate cold from the can, about the 17 days alone, about the hunger and the fear and the videos I had been making in case something happened to me. I told him everything I had been holding inside for over 2 weeks, and I did not stop until I ran out of words. There was a long silence. On the other end, Then, Oliver, where are you right now? At home. Stay there. Do not open the door for anyone except me. I am coming to you. I will be there in 20 minutes. Do you understand? Yes, 20 minutes. I promise. He showed up in 15. I watched through the window as his car pulled into the driveway. He got out, looked at the house like he was assessing it, and walked quickly to the front door. I opened it before he could knock. Hi, Mr. Harrison. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw his expression shift from concern to something harder, something that looked like anger, but not at me. Oliver, can I come in? I stepped back and let him inside. He stood in the entryway for a moment, taking in the silence of the house, the stillness that comes from a place where no one has been living. Properly, show me everything, he said quietly. I need to see what you have been dealing with. So I did. I took him to the kitchen and opened the fridge, empty except for condiments and the expired milk I had been too afraid to throw away. Opened the pantry. Bare shelves. A few random items that were useless without other ingredients. I showed him the credit card on the counter. Explained how it did not work. Showed him the change I had collected. $3.72 in a little pile on the table, like it was treasure. Then I showed him my notebook. Watched his face as he read entry after entry. Watched his jaw clench tighter with each page. When he got to the most recent entry, day 17, he closed the notebook carefully and set it down. Oliver, do you have the videos you mentioned? I nodded and pulled up my phone, handed it to him, watched as he played the first one, then the second, then the third. By the time he finished the last video, the one from yesterday, where I looked straight at the camera and talked about consequences, his hands were shaking slightly. How long did you say your parents have been gone? 17 days. They left on the 10th. They are supposed to come back on the 9th of next month. 13 more days. He pulled out his own phone. Oliver, I am going to make some calls now. Is that okay with you? What kind of calls? The kind that make sure you are safe. The kind that make sure this never happens again. You did the right thing by telling me. Do you understand that? You are not in trouble. You did nothing wrong. Your parents did. And now there are going to be consequences for their choices. I nodded, feeling something loosen in my chest. Relief, maybe, or just exhaustion from carrying this alone. For so long, he stepped into the hallway, and I heard pieces of his conversation. Low voice, controlled but intense. 11 years old, alone for over 2 weeks. No food, no money, parents out of country. Documented everything. Then yes, I am at the residence now. I can stay until someone arrives. He made 3 more calls. One to someone named Ms. Rodriguez from Child Protective Services. One to Mrs. Chen next door asking if she could come over. One to someone else whose title I did not catch. They are sending someone right away, he said when he came back. And Mrs. Chen is coming over. She is going to bring some food. When was the last time you ate? I had to think about it. Yesterday morning. Half a pack of ramen. His expression got darker. Okay, we are going. To fix that right now, Mrs. Chen arrived 10 minutes later with bags of groceries. When she saw Mr. Harrison, when she saw me, really saw me in the bright kitchen light with an adult who was clearly concerned. Her hand went to her mouth. Oh, Oliver, she breathed. Oh, sweetheart. How long? 17 days. Mr. Harrison answered for me. He has been alone for 17 days. She set the bags down and immediately started unpacking. Bread, peanut butter, jelly, fruit, cheese, crackers, juice, real food. Food that did not require cooking. Food I could actually eat. She made me a sandwich right there, thick with peanut butter and jelly, and handed it to me. Eat, she said firmly, slowly. Your stomach might not be used to real food. I took a bite and it tasted like everything good in the world. Like safety. Like someone caring. I had to force myself to chew slowly. To not just shove the whole thing in my mouth while I ate. They talked in low voices. I caught fragments. How could parents do this? Where are they now? What happens next? I focused on the sandwich and let their words wash over me. The doorbell rang again about 30 minutes later. A woman in professional clothes with a bag over her shoulder. She introduced herself as Ms. Rodriguez from Child Protective Services. Behind her was a police officer. My stomach dropped. I had not expected the police. It is okay, Mr. Harrison said quietly, seeing my face. They are here to help, to document everything. Standard procedure. Ms. Rodriguez sat down at the table across from me. She had kind eyes but a serious expression. Oliver, my name is Carmen Rodriguez. I work for Child Protective Services. That means my job is to make sure kids are safe. Mr. Harrison called me because he is concerned about your situation. Is it okay if I ask you some questions? Okay. How old are you? 11. I will be 12 in October. And your parents, where are they right now? Southeast Asia, Thailand, I think. Maybe Vietnam by now. They are taking a trip, temples and beaches and stuff. How long have they been gone? 17 days. And how long are they supposed to be gone total? A month. 30 days. 13 more days until they come back. She wrote everything down. And when they left, who did they arrange to stay with you? This was it. The question that would make it all real. Nobody. They said I was old enough to stay by myself. That it would build character. The police officer, who had been standing quietly by the door, spoke up. Did they leave you with adequate food and money? They left me with $2 and a credit card that does not work because it was never activated. Ms. Rodriguez looked up sharply. $2? For 30 days? Yes, ma'am. And the credit card, do you still have it? I pointed to the counter. She took a picture of it with her phone. Then she took pictures of the empty fridge, the bare pantry, the pile of change on the table. The police officer took his own photos and made notes. Oliver, do you have any other documentation of your time alone? Mr. Harrison mentioned you had been keeping records. I looked at Mr. Harrison. He nodded encouragingly. I got my notebook and phone, handed them both over, watched as Ms. Rodriguez went through everything the same way Mr. Harrison had, but her reactions were more controlled, professional, like she had seen terrible things before and knew how to process them without falling apart. When she finished, she looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. Sadness, maybe, or anger on my behalf. Oliver, what your parents did is called neglect. It is a form of child abuse. Leaving an 11-year-old alone for even a few days without adequate supervision, food, and resources is against the law. Leaving you for 30 days is serious. Very serious. Do you understand what I am saying? I nodded slowly. I kept thinking maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was just being a baby about it. They kept saying, I was mature enough. You are not overreacting, she said firmly. You are a child. Children need adults to take care of them. That is not being a baby. That is being human. Your parents failed in their responsibility to you, and now we need to make sure you are safe and that this does not happen again. What happens now? I asked, my voice small. First, we make sure you have food and a safe place to stay. Mrs. Chen has generously offered to let you stay with her while we sort this out. Second, we contact your parents and inform them they need to return immediately. Third, there will be an investigation. We will review all of this evidence. We will interview you, your parents, neighbors, your school, and then a decision will be made about what happens next. Will I get taken away? Like to foster care? That is not the goal, she said gently. The goal is to keep families together when it is safe to do so. But your parents are going to have to demonstrate that they can provide a safe environment for you. They are going to have to take responsibility for what they did. And there will be consequences. Courts take this kind of neglect very seriously, the police officer added. We will also be filing a report. This will become part of an official investigation. Your parents will be notified when they return to the country. I felt dizzy, not from hunger this time, but from the weight of what I had set in motion. This was real. This was not something I could take back. My parents were going to face actual consequences, legal consequences, and it was because I had told the truth. Oliver, Mr. Harrison said, crouching down so he was at my eye level. I know this is scary. I know this feels big. But you did the right thing. You protected yourself when no one else would. That is incredibly brave. And whatever happens next, you are not going to be alone. Do you hear me? You are not alone anymore. I nodded. Not trusting my voice, Ms. Rodriguez made some calls, stepping outside to talk. When she came back, she had a plan. Okay, here is what is going to happen. Oliver, you are going to stay with Mrs. Chen tonight. I am going to file an emergency report and begin the formal investigation. We are going to contact your parents through their credit card company and airline records to let them know they need to return immediately. Mr. Harrison has agreed to check in on you daily, and I will be back tomorrow to talk more and see how you are doing. Does that sound okay? Yes, ma'am. Do you have clothes and things you need at Mrs. Chen's? I can pack a bag. Mrs. Chen stood up. Come on, sweetheart. Let us get you some things together. I went to my room with her following, started pulling clothes from drawers, grabbed my toothbrush from the bathroom, my phone charger, the notebook from under my mattress, a picture of me and my parents from 2 years ago at the beach, before things got really bad, when they still sometimes acted like they wanted to be around me. As I packed, Mrs. Chen put a hand on my shoulder. You know, I had a feeling something was not right. I should have pushed harder when I brought you that casserole. I should have asked more questions. It is not your fault, I said.
I lied to you. You were protecting yourself.
You were scared. That is not the same as lying for bad reasons. But I am sorry I did not see it sooner. Back in the living room, everyone was waiting. Ms. Rodriguez handed me a card with her phone number. If you need anything, you call me. Day or night, okay? Okay. And Oliver? What you did, documenting everything, keeping records, telling someone when you needed help, that took incredible strength. A lot of kids in your situation would have just tried to survive and never told anyone. You chose differently. You chose to make sure the truth came out. That matters. That night, sleeping in Mrs. Chen's guest room with a full stomach for the first time in over 2 weeks, I should have felt relief, should have felt safe. But mostly I felt scared. Scared of what would happen when my parents found out. Scared of what the investigation would find. Scared that maybe somehow this would all backfire and I would end up in a worse situation than before. But underneath, the fear was something else. Something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe, finally, someone was going to hold my parents accountable. Hope that maybe I would not be invisible anymore. The next morning, Ms. Rodriguez came back with another woman she introduced as her supervisor, Ms. Park. They sat with me at Mrs. Chen's kitchen table and went through everything again. Asked me to walk them through each day in detail. Asked about my relationship with my parents before they left. Asked if this was a pattern or a one-time thing. I told them the truth, that my parents had always been more focused on their careers than on me. That I had learned early on to take care of myself because they were too busy or too tired. That they often forgot school events or promised things they did not follow through on. That this trip was just the most extreme version of something that had been building for years. Have they ever left you alone before? Ms. Park asked. Not for this long. Sometimes overnight if they had a work trip. Once for a weekend when I was 10. But my grandmother was supposed to check on me and she did. This is the first time it has been this long with nothing. They took more notes. Asked if I felt safe going back home eventually. Asked what I wanted to happen. I do not know, I admitted. I do not want to go to foster care with strangers. But I do not know if I can trust them anymore. They chose a vacation over making sure I would not starve. How do you come back from that? Ms. Rodriguez nodded. Those are very valid feelings. And you do not have to have all the answers right now. The important thing is that you are safe and that we figure out how to move forward in a way that protects you. That afternoon, they managed to contact my parents. I was not there for the call, but Ms. Rodriguez told me about it later. My mom had been shocked, insisted there must be some misunderstanding. My dad had immediately gone into defensive mode, talking about how mature I was, how they had left me with resources, how this was being blown out of proportion. We informed them that they need to return immediately. Ms. Rodriguez said that there is an active investigation and that their son is currently in protective custody with a neighbor. We did not give them details yet. That will happen when they get back. But they have changed their flights. They will be home in 3 days. 3 days. 72 hours until I had to face them. 72 hours until they saw what I had documented. 72 hours until everything exploded. Spent those 3 days at Mrs. Chen's house. She fed me real meals. Let me sleep as much as I needed. Did not ask too many questions. Just provided a quiet, safe space for me to start recovering. Mr. Harrison visited every day, checking in, making sure I was okay. Ms. Rodriguez came by twice more to go over what would happen when my parents returned. There will be a meeting. she explained. At your house. You, your parents, myself, Ms. Park, Mr. Harrison as your school representative, and potentially a police officer. We are going to present the evidence and discuss next steps. You will have a chance to speak if you want to, but you do not have to. The evidence speaks for itself. I want to speak, I said. The same way I had told Mr. Harrison. I want them to hear from me what this was like. She nodded approvingly. Then you will have that chance. On the morning my parents were supposed to arrive, I went back to my house with Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Park. We set the kitchen table up like it was a courtroom. My notebook in the center, my phone next to it, videos queued up and ready, printed copies of their social media, posts showing them having fun while I was suffering, the photos I had taken of the empty fridge and bare pantry, the bank statement showing the credit card was never activated. Everything laid out like evidence at a trial. Are you ready for this? Ms. Rodriguez asked me. I looked at the table, at the proof of everything I had been through, at the undeniable truth that my parents had failed me in the worst way. Yes, I said. I am ready. I need them to see this. I need them to understand what they did. We heard the car before we saw it. The sound of tires in the driveway, doors slamming, voices, my mom's laughter, still light and carefree, even though they had been called home early from their dream vacation. My dad saying something about jet lag and needing coffee, like this was just an inconvenience, like they had no idea what they were about to walk into. The front door opened. They came in with their tans and their luggage and their relaxed shoulders, and the moment they saw everyone sitting at the kitchen table, everything stopped. The laughter died on my mom's lips. My dad's hand tightened on his suitcase handle. They looked at Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Park in their professional clothes, at Mr. Harrison standing by the counter with his arms crossed, at Mrs. Chen by the door, at the police officer who had just arrived and was standing in the entryway, and finally at me. I watched my mom's face cycle through confusion, recognition, and then fear, real fear, because she knew. In that moment, she knew this was not going to be a simple conversation. This was not something she could smile away or explain away or excuse. Oliver? She said, her voice uncertain. What is going on? Why are all these people in our house? My dad set his suitcase down slowly. What is this about? We came back early like you asked. What is the emergency? Ms. Park stood up. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, please sit down. We need to have a serious discussion about your son's welfare and the situation you left him in. Situation? My mom said, looking at me like she was trying to figure out what I had said. What situation? We left Oliver with everything he needed. He is fine. Look at him, he is fine. Sit down, Ms. Rodriguez said, and something in her tone made them obey. They sat. My mom kept glancing at me, her eyes pleading. My dad looked at the table, at all the evidence laid out, and the color drained from his face. He knew. He knew exactly what this was about. Over the past 17 days, Ms. Park began, her voice level and professional. Your son has been living alone in this house with insufficient food, inadequate funds, no adult supervision, and no consistent check-ins from you. During this time, Oliver documented his experience extensively. He kept a written record. He made videos. He photographed the conditions he was living in. And 3 days ago, he contacted his school counselor because he was approaching a crisis point. My mom shook her head. That cannot be right. We left him with food. We left him with money. We left him with a credit card. You left him with $2, I said quietly. Every head turned toward me. $2 for 30 days. And a credit card that was never activated. It was declined every single time I tried to use it. That is impossible, my dad said, but his voice was weak. We activated that card. I am sure we did. Ms. Rodriguez slid a printed bank statement across the table. This is from your credit card company. The card in question was issued 3 months ago and has never been activated. There is no PIN set up. It cannot be used for purchases. Oliver tried multiple times. All declined. My mom picked up the paper with shaking hands, stared at it. But we thought. You did not check, Mr. Harrison said, his voice hard. You did not verify. You assumed. And that assumption left an 11-year-old child with no way to buy food for a month. There was food in the house, my dad insisted. We made sure there was food. Ms. Park opened my notebook, started reading out loud. Day 1. The fridge is almost empty. Expired milk. Bad Chinese food. 3 eggs. The pantry has some crackers, almost no peanut butter. Cans I do not know how to open. Rice I do not know how to cook. She turned the page. Day 3. Cut my thumb trying to open beans. Ate crackers. Still hungry. Nobody is called to check on me. Another page. Day 6. Do not feel hungry anymore. My stomach just gave up. That scares me more than the hunger. My mom covered her mouth with her hand. My dad stared at the table. Ms. Park continued. Day 9. Mrs. Chen brought food. She saw me. Really saw me. I wanted to tell her everything, but I was scared. Scared of what happens if I admit I am not okay. She closed the notebook. Should I continue? There are 17 days of entries, each one documenting your son's deteriorating condition, his fear, his hunger, his growing realization that you had abandoned him. We did not abandon him. My mom said, tears starting to fall. We would never. We just thought he could handle it. He is so mature. He has always been so independent. He is 11, Ms. Rodriguez said flatly. He is a child, your child, and leaving a child this age alone for days, let alone weeks with insufficient resources, is neglect. It is illegal, and it is dangerous. My dad ran his hands through his hair. This is being blown out of proportion. Kids used to be way more independent. When I was his age, when you were his age, it was a different time with different circumstances. Mr. Harrison interrupted. And more importantly, what happened to you does not justify what you did to Oliver. This is not about independence. This is about abandonment. Ms. Rodriguez picked up my phone. We are going to play some videos now. Videos Oliver made documenting his experience. I want you to watch them, all of them, and I want you to really see what your choices did to your son. She hit play on the first video. My voice filled the kitchen, small and tired from day 3. My name is Oliver. I am 11 years old. It has been 3 days. Since my parents left, I watched my parents' faces as they listened, watched my mom start crying harder, watched my dad's jaw clench tighter and tighter. They played all the videos, every single one. By the time we got to the last one, the one from day 16 where I talked about consequences and wanting them to understand what they had done, my mom was sobbing openly and my dad looked like he might be sick. Oliver, my mom whispered when the videos ended, I am so sorry. We did not know. We did not think. You did not think about me at all, I said. And my voice was steady, calm, like I had practiced this moment 1,000 times in my head. You thought about your dream vacation. You thought about exploring temples and relaxing on beaches. You thought about finally taking the trip you had been planning for years. But you did not think about whether your son would have enough food. You did not think about what would happen if the credit card did not work. You did not think about how scared I would be alone in this house for a month. You did not think about me at all until someone made you. That is not true. My dad said, we love you. We thought you could handle it. You thought it would be easier for you if I could handle it. I interrupted. You thought if you called me mature and independent, that would excuse you from actually being parents. But it does not work that way. I am 11. I needed you. And you chose yourselves. The room went silent. My words hung in the air like a verdict. Ms. Park spoke next. Based on the evidence we have collected, Child Protective Services has determined that Oliver was placed in a situation of clear neglect. As of now, he will not be returning to your unsupervised care until certain conditions are met. There will be a formal court hearing in 2 weeks to determine the appropriate next steps. What does that mean? My mom asked, her voice breaking. Are you taking him away from us? Oliver will remain in the temporary care of Mrs. Chen, who has agreed to serve as his guardian during this time. Ms. Rodriguez said, you will be allowed supervised visits. You will be required to attend parenting classes. You will both undergo psychological evaluations. You will complete a home safety assessment. And you will demonstrate that you understand the severity of what you did and that you can provide a safe, stable environment for your son. And if we do all that, my dad asked, then the court will determine if and when Oliver can safely return to your care. But I want to be very clear. This is not a guaranteed outcome. The court's primary concern is Oliver's safety and well-being. If they determine that he is better off in alternative placement, that is what will happen. My mom looked at me, mascara running down her face. Oliver, please.
Tell them this is a misunderstanding.
Tell them you want to come home. We can fix this. We can do better. I promise we will do better. I looked at her. At the woman who had given birth to me but had forgotten to make sure I would not starve while she lived her dream vacation. At the woman who had posted smiling photos of temples and beaches while I was eating cold beans from a can on the kitchen floor. At the woman who had called me mature instead of making sure I was fed. I do not know if I can trust you anymore, I said quietly. You left me. You really left me, not by accident, not because of an emergency. You chose to leave me. You chose your vacation over my safety. And now you are crying because there are consequences. But you were not crying when you were having the time of your life halfway around the world. You were not crying when you posted photos about living your best life. You only started crying when you got caught. She flinched like I had hit her. Want to be somewhere. I am not invisible, I continued. Somewhere people actually make sure I have food and check on me and care if I am okay. Right now that is not with you. Maybe it will be someday. Maybe after you take the classes and do the work and prove you actually understand what you did wrong. But right now, I do not feel safe with you. The police officer, who had been quiet this whole time, stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, I also need to inform you that we are filing a formal report with the district attorney's office. There may be criminal charges pending, depending on the outcome of the investigation. You should consider obtaining legal counsel. My dad's head snapped up. Criminal charges? For what? Child endangerment, neglect, possibly others depending on what the investigation finds. Leaving an 11-year-old alone for an extended period with insufficient resources is a crime in this state. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. My parents looked at each other, panic clear on their faces. This was not just about parenting classes and supervised visits anymore. This was about potentially facing criminal prosecution. You should also know, Ms. Park added, that Oliver's documentation will be entered as evidence. The notebook, the videos, the photographs, his testimony, all of it. He has provided a comprehensive record of neglect. That is very difficult to dispute. My mom turned to me one more time. Oliver, why? Why would you do this to us? We are your parents. We love you. How could you turn everyone against us like this? And there it was. The thing I had been waiting for. The moment where she made it about her instead of about what she had done to me. I did not do this to you, I said, and my voice was strong, clear. You did this to yourselves. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. I stopped hiding what you did. I stopped pretending everything was fine when it was not. You taught me that actions have consequences. You told me that 100 times whenever I messed up. Well, this is your consequence. This is what happens when you choose a vacation over your child. Ms. Rodriguez stood up. I think we have covered everything we need to for today. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, you will be receiving official documentation about the hearing, the requirements for your case plan, and the conditions for supervised visitation. Oliver, are you ready to go back to Mrs. Chen's? I nodded, stood up, grabbed my phone from the table, looked at my parents one last time. They looked smaller than they had when they walked in. Broken somehow, like they had finally realized the weight of what they had done. I hope you understand now, I said quietly. I hope you finally see what it felt like. Because maybe if you understand, maybe if you really feel what your choices did, then maybe someday we can figure out how to be a family again. But it has to start with you admitting what you did wrong, really admitting it, not making excuses, not blaming me for telling the truth. Actually taking responsibility. I walked out of my house with Mrs. Chen's hand on my shoulder, did not look back. Behind me, I heard my mom crying and my dad trying to console her. Heard Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Park explaining next steps. Heard the police officer talking about the report, but I did not stop. I walked across the grass to Mrs. Chen's house, went to the guest room that had become mine, and lay down on the bed. I felt exhausted, hollowed out, but also strangely at peace. I had done it. I had told the truth. I had shown them what they had done. And now, for better or worse, everyone knew. The hearing happened 2 weeks later. I sat in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and paper, wearing clothes Mrs. Chen had bought me because mine were all too big now. I had gained back some of the weight I lost, but not all of it. The dark circles under my eyes had faded, but were still visible. My parents sat on one side of the courtroom with their lawyer, a woman in an expensive suit who kept looking at her notes and whispering to them. On my side were Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Park, Mr. Harrison, and Mrs. Chen. I felt less alone than I had in months. The judge was an older woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She went through the evidence methodically. My notebook entries were read into the record. My videos were played. Photos were shown. Mrs. Chen testified about finding me, looking pale and thin. Mr. Harrison testified about my phone call and what he found when he came to my house. Ms. Rodriguez presented the full investigation report. Then it was my parents' turn. Their lawyer tried to argue it was a lapse in judgment, that they were good parents who had made one mistake, that they had no prior history of neglect, that they were willing to do whatever it took to make it right. My dad testified, said he thought I was mature enough, said they had always encouraged independence, said they honestly believed I would be fine, said they loved me and never intended to hurt me. My mom testified, cried through most of it, said she regretted going on the trip, said if she could go back, she would do it differently, said she had no idea I was suffering, said she thought I was okay because I had not called, asking for help. Then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. The judge looked at me with kind eyes. Oliver, I have read your notebook entries and seen your videos, but I would like to hear from you directly. Can you tell me, in your own words, what this experience was like for you? I took a breath, looked at my parents, looked back at the judge. It was like being erased, I said. Like I did not matter enough for them to make sure I was okay. They told everyone how mature I was, how independent. But really, they just did not want to be bothered with making sure their kid had food. They wanted their vacation more than they wanted to be parents. And when I was sitting on the kitchen floor eating cold beans from a can, when I was dizzy from not eating enough, when I was scared and alone and documenting everything just in case something happened to me, they were posting pictures about living their best life. That is what it felt like their best life was one without me in it. The courtroom was completely silent, and now they are sorry, I continued, but only because they got caught, only because someone finally saw what they did. They are not sorry they left me. They are sorry there are consequences. That is different. The judge nodded slowly. Oliver, what would you like to see happen? I want to feel safe, I said. I want to know that if I go back to them, they will not do this again. I want them to understand that I am not an inconvenience. I am their son. And being a parent means more than just having a kid. It means actually taking care of them. My lawyer, a woman the court had appointed to represent me, asked some follow-up questions. Asked about my relationship with my parents before this happened. Asked if there were other times I had been left alone or neglected. I told the truth. Said this was the worst incident. But it was not the first time I had felt like I came second to their careers, their stress, their need to escape. When I was done, I went back to sit with Mrs. Chen. She squeezed my hand. The judge reviewed all the evidence. One more time. Looked at the photos of the empty fridge, the bank statements, the social media posts, everything. Then she spoke. I have presided over many cases involving child welfare, but this one is particularly troubling. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, you made a conscious decision to leave your 11-year-old son alone for 30 days with grossly insufficient resources. This was not an emergency. This was not an accident. This was a planned vacation that you prioritized over your child's basic needs. My mom sobbed louder. My dad stared straight ahead. The evidence presented is comprehensive and damning. Your son documented his suffering in detail. He showed resourcefulness and maturity that should never have been required of a child his age. He survived in spite of your choices, not because of them. She looked at them directly. The court finds clear and convincing evidence of neglect. However, I also recognize that Oliver has expressed a desire to potentially reunify with you if certain conditions are met. Therefore, I am ordering the following. She listed everything. 6 months of mandatory parenting classes, individual therapy for both parents, family therapy if and when Oliver was comfortable, random home visits from CPS, supervised visitation only for the first 3 months, a psychological evaluation to assess their fitness as parents, community service focused on child welfare organizations. And one more thing, you will both write a detailed letter to Oliver explaining what you did wrong, why it was wrong, and what you are doing to change. Not an excuse, not a justification. An actual acknowledgement of your failures as parents. Oliver will decide if and when he wants to read those letters. She paused. If you successfully complete all requirements and if Oliver feels safe returning to your care, we will revisit custody at the 6-month review. But let me be clear. If there is any indication of continued neglect, If you fail to complete any of these requirements, or if Oliver expresses concerns about his safety, I will not hesitate to pursue termination of parental rights. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," they said together. She turned to me. "Oliver, you will continue to reside with Mrs. Chen, who has agreed to serve as your foster parent during this time. You will continue in counseling. You will have full support from the school and CPS. And most importantly, you have a voice in this process. If at any point you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, you speak up. Your well-being is the priority here. Understood?" "Yes, Your Honor." Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. And just like that, my life was officially different. I was not going home. My parents did not have custody. Everything had changed. Because I had refused to stay. Silent. Leaving the courthouse, my mom tried to approach me. Ms. Rodriguez stepped between us. Supervised visits only. "Mrs. Palmer, you will need to schedule those." Through our office, my mom looked at me over Ms. Rodriguez's shoulder. "Oliver, please. I love you. We can fix this." "Then fix it," I said. "Do the work. Take the classes. Go to therapy. Figure out why you thought leaving me was okay. And maybe we can talk about fixing this. But it starts with you, actually. Changing." I walked away with Mrs. Chen, did not look back. The next 6 months were strange. I lived with Mrs. Chen in a house that felt more like home than my own ever had. She made me breakfast every morning, packed my lunch for school, asked about my homework, watched movies with me, did all the normal parent things my actual parents had been too busy or too tired to do. I went to therapy once a week, talked about the abandonment, the hunger, the fear, the anger, slowly started to process everything I had been through. My therapist told me I had developed something called hypervigilance. I was constantly checking to make sure there was food in the house, counting how much money I had, making backup plans for everything. It would take time to feel secure again. My parents attended their supervised visits, once a week for 2 hours, at the CPS office with a social worker watching everything. At first it was awkward, painful. They tried to hug me and I stepped back. They tried to ask about school and I gave short answers. They brought me gifts I did not want. Toys and games like I was still 6 years old. But slowly, over months, something started to shift. They stopped making excuses, stopped trying to explain away what they did. My dad talked about what he was learning in his parenting class, about how he had been raised in a generation that valued independence to a fault, and how he had confused neglect with teaching self-sufficiency. My mom talked about her therapy, about realizing she had been running from stress instead of dealing with it, and how that running had hurt me. They wrote me letters like the judge ordered. Long, detailed letters that I kept in a drawer for 3 weeks before I could bring myself to read them. When I finally did, sitting on Mrs. Chen's couch with her beside me, I cried, because they were real. They were not excuses. They were actual acknowledgments of what they had done wrong. My mom's letter. "Oliver, I failed you. I chose my own needs over yours. I told myself you were mature enough to be alone because it was easier than admitting I did not want the responsibility of being a parent for a month. I wanted to escape. I wanted to be free. And I convinced myself that giving you independence was the same as abandoning you. It was not. It was neglect. It was wrong. And I am so deeply sorry. You deserved a mother who made sure you had food, who checked on you, who put your safety above her own desires. I am working every day to become that mother. I do not know if you will ever forgive me, but I want you to know I am trying. I am really trying." My dad's letter. "Son, I thought I was teaching you to be strong. I thought I was 11. When my parents handed me $2 and disappeared to Asia for a month, the evidence I collected destroyed their perfect life."